Hello, Nashville. My name is James Grady, and I'm the managing editor of Out Voices Nashville. I'm here today with Joe English of the Hope in a Box Foundation and Zee Taylor, a 10th grader from Siegel High School in Murfreesboro. Hope in a Box is part of a nationwide contest that I'm going to ask Joe to tell us about, and Zee was the national winner of that. So let's start with Joe. Tell us a little bit about Hope in a Box and the contest that you guys are part of.
Absolutely. And it's great to be here. Uh, so Hope in a Box has a very simple vision, right? We believe that every single student deserves to feel safe and welcome and included at school, full stop, right? And we see literature and storytelling as a really important piece of that mission, where in the hands of a caring teacher or librarian, books and stories just have this incredible capacity to open people's hearts and minds, right? And to cultivate empathy. So we work with schools across the country to bring LGBTQ inclusive books, literature, curriculum, training into classrooms and school libraries to make sure that we develop schools and classrooms that really do welcome everyone. So that's a little bit about Hope in a Box. We currently work with about 500 schools across the country and reach about 70,000 students.
That's awesome. Um, so, what's the contest? Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So leading up to Pride Month this year, Hope in a Box teamed up with Born This Way Foundation, which was started and led by Lady Gaga and her mother, Cynthia Giamato, in order to ask students, how have LGBTQ inclusive stories and books inspired you in some way, right? And we asked for videos and for essays sharing about those experiences and that inspiration. And we received submissions from all students all across the country, more than 20 states. And as we received those, we were then excited to share some of the amazing stories out with the broader community through Channel Kindness, which is Born This Way's storytelling platform.
Awesome, awesome. Um, so, Z, how did you find out about this in Murfreesboro?
Yeah, so I'm on like book Instagram and book talk all the time. And a very queer book club had posted about it on their Instagram story. And I was like, oh, hey, I feel like needing to vent about growing up. So I might enter it. And then I just did. And now we're here.
So there were three different prompts, and the one that you answered was to write a letter to your younger self and recommend books, or was it? Tell me a little bit about it and what you wrote.
Yeah, so I wrote to my younger self kind of in a almost in like a poem sense because younger Z was pretty hard on themselves, and I wanted to just kind of be like, look, I know that like you're going through a lot right now, but it's you're going to find different characters and different books. I highlighted like Aristotle and Dante discovered the secrets of the universe and symptoms of being human, and also the miseducation of Cameron Post, because growing up, those books kind of continuously changed how I like, observed life. So I was kind of writing to my younger self to kind of highlight those and say, you're going to find things that you see yourself in, and it gets better in a way.
So, Joe, I don't know how much political advocacy that you guys are involved in. I know that there must be some information, but in a state like Tennessee, where the legislature is working to make sure that educators can't bring LGBT material into the classroom, um, do you guys have a plan for working with kids in states like ours, where it might become difficult to work through schools?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we actually support dozens of schools in Tennessee right now. It's one of our most represented states, actually, in our footprint of school. Uh, we've never had a situation where Hope in a Box has been rejected by a school. And the reason for that is that we work hand in hand with teachers and guidance counselors to make sure people understand this isn't political. This doesn't need to be political, right? This is a very human conversation about how you make sure students feel safe in school and feel like they can go into class and have a learning environment where they can succeed. It's really that simple, right? And teachers are the ones who see students bullied. They see students suffering with mental health issues, struggling with family issues back home, and communicating that literature is part of the solution as a human or as a parent or as a teacher. we find that really goes a long way, at least at the district level. So it is a fully our to keep supporting schools, keep supporting students in Tennessee if there's need, and we will respond to that need.
Do you know of any direct resources for kids who might, want access to material but feel uncomfortable getting it through schools like that? If their school isn't, say, a partner of yours or something like that?
Yeah. So we typically refer people to large library systems, right? There are actually quite a few examples, right? For example, in Nashville or outside of that, where you can sign up with, your driver's license or driver's permit or school ID, and you can get access to a digital library of books,
Right.
which is often quite discreet, and that's helpful. And we found that's typically a good first step until the school can get access to Hope in a Box and have that broader suite of materials.
Right. Yeah. And absolutely, the local libraries here do have a great digital collection that people have access to. So good point. Z, has your family been supportive of your LGBTQ reading interests? Was that something that was difficult for you to come to them about, or?
That's an interesting question. Reading is one thing where I don't, for some reason, I don't like talk to my parents about it a lot. My parents have been, I think, as supportive as like people from where they are can be.
Under,
They are very supportive, especially
yes.
like with dad and stuff. But there's still some hard conversations and blurry
Right.
lines. And I do have like another queer sibling, so that also helps. They definitely paved the path and made it easier for me.
Right.
But like there's certain conversations, like especially about like gender, it just kind of like understanding the intricacies of it and stuff can definitely be hard to preach.
Yeah. Understand. So for you, if you were going to, if a friend asked you for recommendations for three books that, as an LGBT kid, they should read, what would be three of your favorites that you would almost always suggest?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Joe, I'm
Obviously,
coming to you too, by the way.
obviously for myself, like those three books that I mentioned are my personal, like they really hit home. For other people, I think it really depends on, I guess, what you're going through. Because I think
Right.
depending like sexuality and gender, I think that there's like a really big difference between different books. But
Yeah.
I would definitely say The Miseducation of Cameron Post is probably my number one. Because I think the way that, you know, Emily Danforth like tackles all the issues and stuff, I think is really, really important. Obviously things like um Felix Ever After and The Black Flamingo are really, really great, especially for, like the trans and genderqueer and things like that. And Symptoms of Being Human, I think for a younger kid, um,
Okay.
like middle school, early high school, is really important because it really gives some incredible metaphors that I think a lot of kids struggling with gender identity can understand and all of those tackle other things like depression and anxiety, which I think a lot of queer kids especially need that to be touched on too for some extent.
For sure. For sure. Joe, if you had to send out a care package to a unknown queer kid, what would you want to include?
Well, so I've already cheated and I created a program with a care package, right? That's 25 titles. Obviously, it's much more than three.
Yes.
Uh, I love each of the books that Z mentioned. I've read all of those, and they're beautiful. Highly recommend. Uh, the Miseducation of Cameron Post also speaks to me just as someone who grew up in a really rural area. It's set in rural Montana. And I think in many ways is a story of resilience, right?
Mm,
Someone who is rejected by their family and their peers and is sent to a conversion camp and sort of perseveres in a difficult way, but ends with a message of hope. I find was hopeful. So there's a lot there that I think speaks to me in particular, and to a lot of students who are from New York and San Francisco. The Song of Achilles is another beautiful one. It's by Madeline Miller, and it's a retelling of the Iliad and the Trojan War from the perspective of Patroclus, who is the lover of Achilles, and
mhm.
I think does a really good job of staying true to the classical story while breathing new life into it and showing this beautiful romantic story. It's not necessarily a gay story; it's a love story. It's universal. Um, And the third one is actually much more recent. It's a memoir. It's called A Dutiful Boy. Was actually just won the Lambda Literary Award this year as a memoir, and tells a story of a British man who grows up in a conservative Muslim family. And again, my mother's family is Pakistani. It was interesting to kind of bridge the world of growing up in the U.S., son of an immigrant. So that spoke to me as well, and how one finds your identity in a sort of a multi-ethnic mix.
Very good. Z, one last question I have for you. How has how did your school respond? How did your fellow students respond to you getting the top billing on this?
Um, so I posted on my private story.
Okay.
I was told not to do that, by the way, but I did it anyway. So, Joe, I'm sorry, but I posted on my close friend story after I got the email being like, "Congratulations!" And I was basically just like, um, "I just entered an essay contest on a whim and won, and I don't know what to do now." Everyone was like, "Congratulations! Like, really, really good job." Um, People have been like asking to read it and stuff, and it's just been really interesting because, like, I think in my essay I kind of showed a lot of hurt that I don't necessarily show a lot. Um, so I've been almost hesitant to like share it with certain people,
Yeah.
but the response has been really, really great, and especially like even from outside of school to like other press organizations and stuff. There's been a lot of really nice comments and critiques on it, and it was very nice to like see that people responded to it well.
So do you have a future as a writer? Is that something you aspire to?
Um, I mean, I'd like to, but, like on a basic level. I don't know what the future holds for me. I'm 16. I don't really want to know, to be honest. I'd like to stay 16 for as long as I can, but maybe we'll see. We'll see what the future holds.
I will also
Um,
add, Z is being very modest, but the pickup to their essay was very strong. I mean, the response was wonderful when their essay was published on Channel Kindness, the storytelling platform.
mm,
Uh, I did share the essay with Emily Danforth, who's the author of The Miseducation of Cameron Post, and she's a supporter of Hope in a Box, and she loved the essay. So anyway, the pickup has
very
been great, and I think Z is being very modest, which is wonderful.
You. One of the authors of one of the books, Jeff Garvin, he saw my Instagram post about it um after it was published.
That's so great.
And yeah, and he like posted it back on his story. It was like an incredible essay by an amazing reader. And I was like, this is so sweet. Because
That's so wonderful.
I love when authors interact with me. I've had like Becky Arbatali is fantastic, by the way, with like interacting with fans and stuff on social media. She's incredible. She's a really great author too, especially for like middle grade books. I love
yeah.
her. Anyways, um, but she's like commented on my post a few times, and every time I'm just like, I've met her in real life too, and it's just like even still, it's just like every time. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's great. Glad to hear it. Do you guys have anything else you want to share with us before we call it quits?
The one thing I'd love to add is actually an opportunity. Hope in a Box is doing a virtual event on June 24th at 8 p.m. where we're doing author Q&A and readings from a number of books. Authors who've written wonderful LGBTQ inclusive stories. So Becky Albertalli will be there. Z, who wrote Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, which obviously was turned then into Love, Simon, the film. We'll also have Emily Danforth, who wrote The Miseducation of Cameron Post, there reading and doing Q&A. And we'll also have David Levithan, who wrote Boy Meets Boy, Will Grayson, and a number of other books. So for people who want to tune in, it's hopeinabox.splashthat.com. You can go and get tickets. They're free. You can do an optional donation with it. But that's another interesting opportunity to engage with these stories.
That's great. And I assume people can go to your website to support your organization as well.
Yes. Yeah, right on the homepage, hopeinabox.org. It's really easy to support another school and bring these materials to schools.
Fabulous. All right. Well, thank you both for joining me. Thank you for providing the services that you provide, Joe and Z. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.